Thank you to Kenzie Bruce for his incredibly generous support on Patreon. Niv Mizzet Parun versus Odric Lunark Marshall, Narset Enlightened Master, and Velomarcus Lawhold. I decided to risk a bounce land. Never run these bounce lands, but it'll ensure that we've got a decent amount of mana. It's pretty slow on getting the Arcane Signet out, but yeah, we've got a decent amount of mana there, let's keep that. A turn 1 Serret Ascendant from the mono white player will come down as a 6/6 flyer with lifelink. And we draw into Ral, Storm Conduit, so getting into some Storm cards in the early game isn't great. Gilded Drake into the Serret Ascendant might be pretty good though. Let's go for Misty Rainforest, and I think we'll just get a duel with that. Just a land from Kills and a Ponder from Bootleg Greedo. And now the 6/6 flying lifelink goes in towards Greedo and bumps the mono white player up to a 46 straight away. Looks as though he's kept a one lander just because of that Serret Ascendant though. Alright, and we get into a land, that's really good. So I'm going to go for this one first so that we can go for the Gilded Drake straight away. And casting the Gilded Drake, we will be able to swap with our opponent. And the more life we gain, the more we'll be able to draw it out into the late game and hopefully storm off later on. A Boros Signet from the Velomarcus player, then a Felwar Stone from Bootleg Greedo. Now, as punishment for us stealing the 1 mana creature, the Gilded Lotus turns in sideways at us. And we untap, keeping our Serret Ascendant in play. Still haven't made a land over there, unfortunately. Let's go for... We'll go for the Arcane Signet. And we'll be able to go Izzet Boilerworks this turn. And then Billy Kills hasn't been hit yet, so we'll go over there. I will go in at the mono white player, but he's struggling on lands at the moment, so we'll give him a turn or two to catch up in that regard. And this is a Dragon's Approach deck by the looks of it. Billy Kills casting Dragon's Approach, putting one in the bin. Oh, that's a really good one. Whirlwind of Thought from Billy Kills. Yeah, that's the type of card I'd like to see the back of, personally. Yeah, and the mono white player being punished for keeping a one lander apparently. So just continuing to hit us with the Gilded Lotus. It's not worthy that a white mana has been held up over here as well. Okay, there's a Lightning Greaves. I think I'd like to get that into play before our commander. Let's go for the island. Yeah, and I think we can just go for the Lightning Greaves here. I was thinking about maybe going for the Ral Zarek, but yeah, I think the Lightning Greaves is going to be better here, because we are likely going to be getting out our Niv Mizzet next turn. And we were allowed to equip up the Serret Ascendant, so I'm assuming that there's no swords or anything over here. And let's hit the white player, take them below 40. And now a Dockside Extortionist from Billy Kills will generate a decent number of treasures. That is 4 to be exact. And sacrificing all the treasures and tapping the rest of the lands down to get down Velomarcus. And that does have flying and haste, so as you would think, coming in towards us. And that does trigger the Velomarcus as well. Gonna have to watch out for commander damage from that thing. A Dragon's Approach being cast with that. And now an As Foretold as well to start getting some free spells into play. We'll see how long Greedo can survive casting all these setup cards. Looks as though everyone's going to have their attention on us, I think, thanks to the Serret Ascendant, which is pretty much the only downside of running that thing. Anyway, Mask of Memory coming down after the second land being made in Thespian Stage. Should be able to start hitting lands with Mask of Memory next turn. And as you would expect, the Gilded Drake swings in towards us. So now we hit ourselves a training centre. I'll put that into play. Double blue being held up here. Our commander can't be countered, so that's probably the one to go for, I would think. Yeah, let's go Niv Mizzet Parun. We'll just have to hope that they don't have removal. And let's try and get the Lightning Greaves on there straight away. Okay, no removal on that is excellent. So hopefully we'll be able to survive a turn. Let's swing in towards Billy Kills. I imagine they're swinging in towards us regardless because, like I said, if they go for Dragon's Approach, it'll knock us below 30, which takes the buff away from this, and then they might just swing in towards us anyway. So we'll gain a little bit of life. That'll actually take us up to 36, so even if they do hit us with this, maybe if they don't Dragon's Approach, we'll stay at 31 because that can't hit us now. We'll see. Deciding to not offer up the trade between the dragons, swinging in towards Bootleg Greedo now. I think it is a wise decision to not ignore Bootleg Greedo, but we're not exactly anything less than a threat at this point. And that is an instant being cast, so Relentless Assault, untap all creatures that attack this turn, and there is an additional combat phase. We can deal 1 damage to... let's deal it to the Elder Dragon, just in case they get a bunch of Dragon's Approaches being cast this turn. We drew into Snap, by the way, which will be a good means to untap some lands, as well as force our opponent to recast something like a Velamarcus. It's also a form of ramp. When we've got the bounce land in play, we can tap this down and another one for 3 mana, and then untap both of them when this only costs 2. And then swinging in again, not sure where they're swinging into, but they do get themselves into a Swords to Plowshares, so we'll hit them with that one. And then it's only 3 more damage onto that thing, which I'm not sure anyone will be able to do. We'll still gain the life from the Serret Ascendant here as well, so back up to 42. And turns out they were swinging in towards the Odric player, so putting 5 commander damage on there, knocking him down to 29. Now a Jeska's Will. So they're going to have to be careful how many instants and sorceries they cast here, because we've got 3 damage on them at this point. My current plan is to go for bouncing this back to hand with the Snap and then recasting it and taking the Velamarcus away from them. No instants and sorceries revealed with that. They get Arcane Signet, Mana Crypt and a land tax. And with those draws we got into Cavern of Souls and a Reality Spasm, by the way. This is a Storm deck, as the Storm card suggested, and I've been meaning to make an Izzet Storm deck for years now, and just never got round to it, and I actually don't really know what I'm doing with Storm, so if I make any obvious mistakes you'll have to forgive me. Anyway, these spells being cast by the Boros player. And then passing the turn around, as foretold, we'll get its first counter on it. Oh, that's a nice combination of cards. Teferi's Ageless Insight along with Whirlwind of Thought, so every non-creature spell they cast, they're going to draw 2 cards now. Might be time to start looking at getting rid of Bootleg Greedo, or at least knocking him down to a more healthy life total. I'm just wondering if we can actually storm off at this point, because we do have Reality Spasm, which we'll be able to double up with the Ralstorm Conduit. Might have to get the Ral into play first, so maybe get Ral into play, bounce this, and steal the other flyer away next turn. Ready to set up a Reality Spasm that we can copy with the Ral. Anyway, a Mask going on to the Gilded Drake, and that swings in towards Bootleg Greedo, who people are worrying about all this setup he's doing. And that does connect, so they'll get to draw 2 and discard 1. And then going for the Pearl Medallion, so it might be that he had a good opening hand, except for the fact that it only had 1 land in it, but finally managing to start ramping and stuff, so we might see the white player get back into this yet. We draw a card at the beginning of the turn, so let's go after that Dockside Extortionist, maybe? Are they likely to fish that out of the bin? I think they're more likely to flicker it than they are reanimate it, so yeah, let's point of damage at the Dockside. Let's tap down the Izzet Boilerworks and the Training Centre. We'll go Snap onto our Gilded Lotus. Or Gilded Drake even, not Gilded Lotus. That will have us draw a card with the Niv Mizzet. Okay, and we draw into Ether Spouts, which will let us put a damage onto the Dockside to finish that off. The Gilded Drake goes back into our hand. We can untap 2 lands, which does a little bit of ramp for us. Yeah, so let's go in for the Gilded Drake here. And we'll attempt to steal away that commander. Okay, there is the Teferi's Protection. Do we want to... Well, we'll draw a card first, definitely. Desperate Ritual. Let's just deal the damage to Billy Kills. I think might go for a Frantic Search here. And we'll attempt to get into a counterspell for the Teferi's Protection. Don't have too many counterspells in this deck. because I don't want it to just be counters.deck, but there's every chance that we'll be able to get into one. We'll deal another damage to kills. Okay, no such luck unfortunately, getting into our rocks finally. We'll get rid of steam vents and the mountain there. Untap both of those. Oh, and Frantic Search is... wow, is it really 3 lands? I thought it was only 2, that's annoying. Did say I don't know what I'm doing with storm decks. Oh well, could have gained some more mana there. Anyhow, we'll deal a couple more damage to kills. So dealing a nice chunk of damage to him here with the Niv Mizzet. And we'll let him go away to the Teferi's Protection. I think I want to carry on setting up for another turn here. I want to get that Ral Storm Conduit into play and then we can go Reality Spasm. Gilded Drake can just be a chump blocker. Oh, okay, that's surprising. I thought that would be a chump blocker there. When it enters the battlefield, exchange control of it. So because the ability fizzled, and the player who should have gained control of it is phased out, there's no one to give it to, and therefore it just dies. I didn't think that's what would happen there. So apparently don't have a chump blocker. Let's go Command Tower. And we'll go for the Ral Storm Conduit here. Let's plus and scry. Land on top, don't think we're particularly bothered about. We'll put that on the bottom. And let's just go for a Talisman of Creativity here. So tapping out as the Niv Mizzet player probably isn't the best idea, but I'm hoping that there's going to be lots of instants and sorceries being cast, especially by the Jeskai player. Looks as though Billy Kills has his fair share of instants and sorceries as well. Now then, with 2 cards in hand, we will see if he wants to swing in towards Ral. He probably should offer up the trade. And yeah, going in towards Ral there. So we're going to have to leave it another turn, I think. Plus it next turn, and then we'll be able to go the -2 on the turn after, I hope. Because we'll be able to hold up Ether Spouts for anything that can hit it. Anyway, Velamarcus gets into the red zone and triggers itself. And there is Secret Rendezvous. Haven't seen this card played yet. You and a target opponent each draw 3. They have targeted the mono white player. We will draw a card as well because that is a sorcery. And that means that we get to deal a damage. We'll do it to the Elder Dragon again, just to try and dissuade them from casting too many instants and sorceries. Then a Dragon's Approach, which draws us into another land and hit the Elder Dragon again. Then deciding to just leave it at that, he has 4 cards in hand. We go over to see what Bootleg Greedo can do. Okay, and holding up 7 mana there. It is noteworthy that Cyclonic Rift has now been unbanned in our playgroup, so yeah, the Jeskai player just passing the turn with 7 mana held up suggests that it might be Cyclonic Rift. And Denetha, Capuchin Paragon coming into play as the second creature only, I think, for the mono white player. Then a Basilisk Collar, which is Death Touch and Lifelink. No haste, thankfully, so that is going to be a threat. First Strike and Death Touch is really good. Always Swiftfoot Boots as well. Unfortunately, our opponent can't equip up the Denetha with anything because they've just run really low on mana this game. I don't know if they actually made a land that turn, even with the 3 cards that they drew. And now Bootleg Greedo tapping down a bunch of mana. And it is not Cyclonic Rift, it is Into the Story, which is draw 4 cards at instant speed. So I don't think we're going to see another instant or sorcery, so I'm not going to point the damage at Denetha. I'm going to start pecking away at the Jeskai player in Bootleg Greedo. They will draw a couple of cards to that. They're actually going to draw 8 cards from Into the Story. And we draw into yet another land. Okay, and that gets us into Mana Drain, which could be potentially game-changing here if we manage to protect our Niv Mizzet Parun with that. Let's deal a damage to Greedo over there. Maybe should have put that on Denetha actually, now that I'm thinking about it. We'll go for a plus on Ral as well. And that is a Counterflux, which I don't mind keeping on top either. So we'll drop down a mountain. We do care about having 3 snow lands in play thanks to the Frostbite that we've got in this deck. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure we want to do anything but cast the Chromatic Lantern this turn, to be honest. We'll go Chromatic Lantern and hold up the Ether Spouts, I think. There's every chance it could get countered though. Yeah, this is where me not knowing what to do in Storm decks really hurts. I think trying to protect the Ral would be a good idea. Maybe should have held up the mana drain instead of going Chromatic Lantern here. Although we do have Desperate Ritual. The Boros player now has 4 cards in hand, and no doubt they're going to go in for the Ral again. They do go into attack. Let's see what they manage to get into with the Velomachus. That is a Chroma's Will. They can do both. Creatures you control gain lifelink, indestructible, protection from all colours until the end of the turn. Flying Vigilance and Double Strike as well. And it is, of course, the Counterflux on top. Let's put a damage onto the Dranith. And now we actually don't need to worry about going for the Desperate Ritual. It's 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, and we can hold up the 2 for the mana drain. So let's go for the Ether Spouts. And that can deal 1 damage to Greedo, because I don't like the fact that he's got 14 cards in hand over there. We will, of course, draw another card with Niv Mizzet. And we draw into High Tide. That's exactly what we want with Reality Spasm, although I don't think we've got all that many islands, to be honest. I think we've drawn into all of the jewels. These are the kinks that I need to iron out. Yeah, maybe need to rely a lot more on just basics. Anyway, we deal another damage to Greedo. Oh, actually, instead of doing it to Greedo, I should have done it to the Denetha. Completely forgot about it there. My brain's kind of... yeah, my brain's kind of doing overtime here because I don't actually know what I'm doing. Might have to waste the Desperate Ritual to get rid of that thing. Anyway, successfully managing to get rid of Velomachus. You would assume that it's going into the command zone. No, it goes on to the top of the library, so they'll just have to make sure not to shuffle their library. We might get to counter a big spell here so that we can get rid of that Dranith. That is a Scourge of the Throne. Flying and Dethrone. When it attacks the first time each turn, you have the chance of getting another combat step. I don't like the idea of that, so... yeah, we can only afford the mana drain, so let's go for that. 6 free mana next turn. Ral will hit Greedo again. We draw a card, get rid of the Dranith. And it is just a Cascade Bluffs that we drew into. Rhystic Study, continuing to draw Greedo into a hell of a lot of cards. Now a Steam Augury. Reveal the top 5 cards, separate them into 2 piles. An opponent chooses one of them, and you put them into your hand. The other go in the graveyard. That is not card draw, so it won't be doubled up. But they will still draw 2 cards from the Whirlwind. Chaos Warp goes on to the Rhystic Study, and I dare say the tax will be paid on that. Let's continue to pepper away at Greedo. We do now have a Remand as well. This has been a very instants and sorceries based game, thankfully. And it looks as though the Chaos Warp flipped into a land, as it so often does. We've now got Pongify available to us now as well, so that's just better protection for our Ral. Well, and there's some cards. We've got Counterflux, some mana, Smothering Tithe, Kaikar, and it is the mono white player that is separating these piles, so they might be working together in order to better counteract us, but I'm not sure. I haven't really been reading the chat. Yeah, it's a pretty rough pile to split up. I'm not sure how I would do that one personally. But either way, Bootleg Greedo deciding on the Talisman, the Smothering Tithe, and the Kaikar going to hand. And that tops up 19 cards in hand over there. Deciding to cast the Smothering Tithe, so might be that we can get rid of a player or 2 next turn. We do have to be wary of the Counterflux though. I wonder if it's worth paying into that. Assuming that the Smothering Tithe makes a token during the white player's turn, it will make one during ours if we don't pay for it. Yeah, might have to go for paying for the Smothering Tithe so that we don't get counterfluxed. And Greedo does not have an infinite hand size, so he's going to have to discard 13 cards from his hand here. And, yeah. Just drawing into a bunch of lands, apparently. There's the Steam Augury, there's a Chromatic Lantern in there, which isn't a land, is mana though. There is Archmage Ascension, the Locust God as well. Glad to see the back of that, but yeah, just a whole heap of lands that Greedo's been drawing into, apparently. Anyway, the mono white player has now got Pure Steel Paladin in play, and that does have Metalcraft, so we'll be able to suit that up. So, yeah, that's not good for us. I was hoping to make use of the Ral, but apparently we're not going to do that. So maybe it's just time to turn our back on Ral. Oh, surprisingly, going in towards us as opposed to the Ral. Is that a misclick, or were they trying to do that? Maybe they're just trying to draw cards. This has to deal combat damage to a player. Yeah, okay, we'll just let them hit us then. So the Mask of Memory triggers. They don't have access to any white mana currently, although they should be able to make a land this turn. And he discards to that Ajani Steadfast. And does manage to make a Plains, going down to 7 cards. It's noteworthy that there are enough treasures here now, thanks to the Mask of Memory. So, we do have to play around Counterflux somewhat, which feels pretty bad. So maybe we just do our damnedest to get rid of Greedo here. Not going to pay into the Smothering Tithe, because we do have a couple of counter spells ourselves, so we can't counter the Counterflux, but we could counter another one. And we do get 6 mana from the Mana Drain as well, just to help us along in our quest to demolish everyone this game. Let's see, we'll just go the Cascade Bluffs first of all. And thanks to the mana from the Mana Drain, maybe we still just go for the Reality Spasm, because we'll get a copy from it at least. Yeah, let's go for the minus with Ral. So we'll cast the Reality Spasm. That will untap X target permanents. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And we got 6 mana from the Mana Drain, so that's effectively, well, almost free. We'll just do the lands. So that triggers the Ral. We will hit our opponent again. Draw a card with the Niv Mizzet Parun, which will pet Greedo again. And there is a generous gift from our opponent. They are hitting our Ral Zarek, which, I mean, we're still going to get the copy, so it would be nice to keep hold of that, but I don't think I'm too bothered about that personally. They're still going to have mana for the Counterflux because we're going to keep drawing cards. Yeah, I think we let that go down. They'll draw some more cards to the Whirlwind of Thought as well. We also draw a card to the Generous Gift, which is an Izzet Signet, and another damage onto Bootleg Greedo. And we didn't pay for the Tithe there either from drawing the cards, so they've got the Counterflux mana up, ready for the Reality Spasm if they want it. Noteworthy that the white player is holding up mana over there as well, so he might have a Generous Gift of his own. He can afford it with the Pearl Medallion. And all the same targets are on the copy as well, so we will say OK there. And it's noteworthy on Magic Online, it says that, yeah, target number 3, target number 4, etc. So it wants you to change them individually, so I'll have to hit OK for all of the targets here. Just in case any of you play Magic Online and you want to know how this works. So many games are lost to misclicks. Then we've got a draw from Niv Mizzet Parun on the stack. So that will hit Greedo again. And it is Mizzex's Mastery. And before the Reality Spasm, the original one resolves. Yeah, we need to be careful how many lands we tap, because they could counter that one and then force us to be tapped out during our turn. So we'll just tap that amount, and then we've got mana held up for Remand and any other 2 mana counter that we might be able to get into. Obviously got the Counterflux as well. But apparently not going for that Counterflux, so we could have tapped down more lands there, but it's always a risky one, unfortunately. Yeah, I think it was a better idea to play around that. Let's go Desperate Ritual. Point the damage at Bootleg Greedo again, and there is the 1000-Year Storm. Surprisingly, we've only cast 2 instants and sorceries this turn. We don't have all that many instants and sorceries that are all that relevant for the Mizzex's Mastery in the bin either. Let's try this 1000-Year Storm, see if we can get it through some counter magic. It seems as though Greedo was F6, so I don't know if he's really bothered about countering at this point. It's not worthy as well, even without the treasures, he could have cast it for free here. So now we can cast ourselves a Preordained, try and get into as many instants and sorceries as possible. I'll try not to screw up this 1000-Year Storm too much. We get 2 copies of the Preordain. So that is Scry 2 and draw. I don't think we're going to make use of Goblin Electromancer. So we'll put both of those on the bottom. Draw into a land anyway. And then a turnabout is really good. So land on the bottom. A turnabout on top. And I think it might be time to go in for the High Tide, even though we don't have all that many islands in play. Draw into turnabout and yet another land, so getting into the islands finally. And then the original Preordain is going to resolve. And that is a Wheel of Fortune, which might help us continue with the Storm, so we'll go bottom and top for the Wheel of Fortune. And then we'll play the High Tide. We'll only get double mana from 2 of our lands. Oh, actually, it'll be more than double mana thanks to the 1000-Year Storm. Take down Greedo, and per island we tap, we'll get, I don't even know how many blue. We get 3 copies of the High Tide, though. There we go, so big thank you to Greedo for playing that out, because it has been a very grindy one this turn. Hopefully I'll be able to finish Billy Kills and Zectbu off quite quickly, because we do have the Ignite Memories in hand, drawn into a Seething Song as well, by the way. So we've got 2 mana floating. Let's tap an island here, and yeah, that gets us into 5 mana on 1 island. This is another island, so we'll tap all these down and we'll cast Turnabout. Turnabout is a means for us to untap our lands. And we do get copies of that with the 1000-Year Storm. Yeah, I'm starting to realise why exactly it is that I haven't played this deck before. It is very click intensive, and getting all these copies of 1000-Year Storm, it's yeah, not my kind of deck really, because it just forces your opponents to sit there and watch you play, but hopefully during the editing process it won't feel as bad to all of you. But a big thank you to the patrons again for sitting through all this. So we select land, we select untap, then tap between each turnabout, and then it's land and untap again, and as you can see we're floating a whole heap of mana every time we do this. Alright, so now I'm hoping that Ignite Memories is going to be enough to take out the white player, because they ought to not have a bunch of lands in hand, because they've been struggling with that all game. So let's finally try to start taking players out. Ignite Memories makes 7 spells cast before it this turn, so it will make copies of itself. 1000-Year Storm will make a bunch of copies of itself as well. And Niv Mizzet Parun will draw us a card. Ignite Memories, we will target the ones that it copied itself. Will target the mono white player Zectbu with that each time. And then we'll see how we fare here. They've revealed Elesh Norn a couple of times, luckily for us, so that really knocks their life total down. A Lyra Dawnbringer as well. I really want to make a Lyra Dawnbringer deck at some point. An Aven Mind Sensor for a Lightning Bolt. Aven Mind Sensor again. And Lyra Dawnbringer will be able to take them out. So getting the mono white player with the Ignite Memories. That next one will fizzle because it doesn't have a legal target. And now we can start dealing the 1 damage with Niv Mizzet Parun to Billy Kills. And now we've got all the copies of Ignite Memories. So obviously targeting Billy Kills with all these Ignite Memories. 2 cards in hand, he might just have 2 lands. We might have to get rid of him the old-fashioned way. Well, he's got a mountain. A mountain and an Ancient Tomb, so Ignite Memories isn't going to do it with this one. Luckily we do have a Grape Shot. And we've also got 5 damage in the air with Niv Mizzet as well, so we should still be able to do it. Just to make sure, with the Grape Shot, we'll go Seething Song, and then we can always Snap Mage into the Grape Shot as well. So we draw another card with Niv Mizzet Parun. And that is a Vandal Blast, which we could cast as well. Don't think we're going to need to though. 1 damage to Billy Kills, and Grape Shot should be able to do it at this point, I would think. So Seething Song gets a bunch of copies of that, and that is 5 mana per Seething Song we're getting. Okay, so we end up with over 100 mana there. Let's go Grape Shot onto Billy Kills, and hopefully that will be the end of this one. 7 copies from the 1000 Year Storm, 9 spells cast before Grape Shot, so it will storm itself 9 times. So that is more than enough here. So with the Grape Shot Storms, we take them down to 6, we'll draw a card with the Niv Mizzet, and then it's all the copies of the Grape Shot. So they all go on the stack, and we'll watch Billy Kills' life total slowly drain down. And there we are, finally, after all these years, playing a Storm deck on the channel. Massive thank you to my opponents for playing that one. Billy Kills and Bootleg Greedo are patrons to the channel, as you all know. And Zektbu is a friend from the Discord as well. Wouldn't have been possible without them, because there's no way in hell that an MTGA random would have played through all that. So be sure to thank them in the comments section, because they really did just have to sit there and watch me do all that. That was very click intensive. But that's the nature of Magic Online and Storm decks. Hopefully you all enjoyed watching that one. Be sure to leave it a thumbs up and subscribe if you did. You can support via Patreon with the link in the description below as well. I'm tribalkai on the EDH channel. Thank you for watching.